Hey guys, Corell Cooper here with OnTheBlack.com, giving you a quick recap of the Mets-Marlins series from this weekend. So the Mets lost 2 out of 3 to the Marlins this weekend, dropping their record to 3-3 on the young season. There's 3 sort of takeaways that I have coming out of this series as the Mets head home. The first one is this is Johan Santana's first loss since June 28th of last season. So Santana almost went a full year without losing a game. And the reason why I bring that up is because today was a tough way for him to lose this game. You know, he struck out 13 batters and he looked really good today. And, you know, he lost this game because, unfortunately, of, Murphy's error earlier in the game. You know, at worst, Santana should have gotten a no decision today. You know, and at best, he could have gotten the win if it wasn't for that error. So, tough way for Santana to get his first loss in almost a year. My second takeaway from this series is the Mets offense. They've been a little inconsistent so far over the first 6 games. You know, for example, on Friday night, the first game of the series, the Mets lost that game 5-4, and the Mets left 14 guys on base in that game. They come back Saturday and they score 8 runs, and then today, even though they ran into a really good young pitcher from the Marlins, they only scored 1 run today. So, you know, I'm not expecting the Mets to score 10 runs every game, but I would expect them to be a little bit more consistent as we get into the season. The Mets are going to need some consistency out of that offense. My third takeaway from this series is Daniel Murphy's defense. You know, Murphy's made some pretty good plays in the outfield so far this season, but he's also looked very shaky at times too. And today was really the first time it turned around and really, came up and bit the Mets. When he dropped that ball in the outfield today. And, you know, I will say this. We all know that Murphy is not the best defensive left fielder that's out there. And it's something that we as Mets fans, we're going to have to kind of live with and tolerate if we want him to be in the lineup. And, you know, from my standpoint, as long as Murphy hits the ball and, you know, he continues to be productive at the plate and in that 2-hole, I think, you know, I can live with his lack of defense. So, those are my 3 takeaways from the Mets-Marlins series this weekend. So now for our segment on who's hot and who's not. Who's hot? How about Livan Hernandez? Hernandez came to the Mets competing for the 5th spot. He won that 5th spot in spring training, and it looked like that was the best decision for the Mets to let him be the 5th starter. His first game this weekend against Florida, he pitched 6 2/3 innings. He gave up, I believe it was 6 hits and 2 earned runs, and got the only win that the Mets had this weekend. Besides Santana, Hernandez is the only Met pitcher so far to pitch more than 6 innings in a game, and he looked really good. So good job from Hernandez. Hopefully he'll keep it up. And then who's not hot? How about Pedro Feliciano? Let me give you his stats so far on the season. Well, first of all, he lost the game Friday night against the Marlins. He was the losing pitcher. And so far this year, Feliciano is 0-1. He's pitched 2 innings. He's given up 3 earned runs and has an ERA of 11.57. So not so good for Pedro Feliciano so far this year. He's one of the few guys left in that Met bullpen from last season who couldn't get anyone out, and Feliciano hasn't looked good so far this season. So up next for the Mets, they'll return home starting tomorrow night for their home opener, the first ever regular season game at Citi Field. Mike Pelfrey will be on the mound against the San Diego Padres. I'll be going to that game tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to see Pelfrey pitch and seeing the festivities that the Mets will have for their first ever game at Citi Field. Let me know what you guys think. Talk to you soon.